Here are the Just No Mother-in-Law stories for this video. As always, don't forget to share and like if you enjoy these videos. Without further ado, here we go. Mother-in-law chose her hair over her grandchild in a medical emergency. Today, my daughter was rushed to ER with tachycardia and chest pain with nausea. My husband called mother-in-law to watch our other kids. First time in 4 years we've asked for the help in an emergency. We were desperate. Mother-in-law answers the phone and is on the way to a hair appointment. My husband says, "Well, can you turn around? You're only 50 minutes away and we don't have any options right now." Mother-in-law says she can't, as she is already pulling into the parking lot. He hangs up in frustration and we end up getting a neighbor we barely know to watch our kids so we can go with our child to the hospital. We thought she was going into cardiac arrest, one of the more terrifying experiences of parenthood thus far. She's okay, but we don't know what's wrong, so we have a follow-up with a cardiologist on Monday for a full workup. At the time of this though, we thought we might lose our 9-year-old daughter. Not a single word was said, no apologies or explanations except to say, "I was already there." And after 6 years of dealing with their bullshit, good parent, grandparent, only at social media or to her friends, my husband finally decides to confront them because this was just too much. He calls and says that he was upset that she chose a hair appointment over being there for her family in an emergency, and then all hell broke loose. Mother-in-law and father-in-law take it upon themselves to start yelling at my husband so loud I can hear them in the earpiece of the phone from across the room. Having had a terrible day already, I knew my husband couldn't and shouldn't have to handle that. So I took the phone from him and attempted to calmly explain that we did expect them to help in an emergency, especially since she could have rescheduled this hair appointment. Mother-in-law proceeds to tell me that we had this many kids and we should lay in the bed we made. She then begins to mock me by saying, "Oh, no one could possibly have it harder than husband and OP, not at all." When I expressed that it seemed unfair that their parents were willing to watch my husband and his sister, not only for emergencies but also for weekly football games during the fall and most weekends, and they aren't willing to help when it's truly emergent. Mother-in-law said that we chose to have 4 children and that's why they only had 2. So helpful, right? She said that she didn't want to be forced to do anything and they weren't willing to structure their lives around ours. Remember, at this point they haven't babysat in 4 years, and only then it was a couple of times, for only 2 hours max each time. I had a high-risk pregnancy with my 4th, and we were in a bind for a couple of longer growth ultrasounds. They always act like it was extremely overwhelming and barricaded our children in the same room that their cats would piss all over, so we really didn't make a point of burdening them. My husband has also been having a rough time with his mental health lately. In a conversation this evening, I said they know husband is having a hard time lately and worrying about who would watch our other kids while our daughter was in a medical emergency was more stress than necessary. Mother-in-law took it upon herself to say, "And it's not our fault husband doesn't want to get help. He doesn't want to get help, but his insurance changed last fiscal year and we had to sacrifice weekly therapy appointments in favor of less frequent." This wasn't even the most insulting thing she said, but it sure stuck out. Well, given how they've come clean with how they really feel about us and their grandchildren, we have decided to completely cut ties. They don't support us in any way, and it's doing more harm than good to continue to put ourselves in a position to be hurt or disappointed. F mother-in-law and her hair. Mother-in-law thinks she doesn't have to return debt because she's a mother. A while ago, we lent mother-in-law $50 because she was short of money and she had to fix her broken fridge. It might seem not that big of a number, but to my family, that's quite a big sum. We're not rich. We made it clear that we are lending her this money, not gifting it. Any normal person would understand we're expecting it back. Mother-in-law did not. Eventually, everything fell into place for mother-in-law. She found a new job, started working, and was bragging to us about how lucky she was to find it and how big the salary there was. We thought, great, so she will be able to return us the money we gave her. A few months went by and mother-in-law didn't mention a word about the debt, as if that hadn't happened at all. We thought, well, maybe she actually forgot about it, even though I find it highly unlikely. At least I personally could never forget about that, no matter if it's $50 or 5 cents. So my husband mentioned it to her. He was like, hey, do you remember the $50 we lent you? Like, you're working now, we just thought you maybe forgot it. She gave him an incredulous look and went, so? Are you expecting money from your mother? Who does that? He said, well, we lend it to you. Lending means you expect the thing you lent to be returned. Mother-in-law was like, not from your mother. It's really low to do that. I never thought I should explain such things to you. She knows very well that we're not rich. We don't have spare money just lying around waiting to be gifted. Out of the kindness of our heart, we helped her when she was going through a tough time, and now she's acting as if we were trying to pull her own money out of her wallet. If you borrowed something, you must return it, no matter if you're a relative or not. Later, we decided to let it go. We cannot prove we gave her any money in the first place, as we gave to her in cash, not put it on her bank account. We told her, fine, mother-in-law, keep those $50, choke on them if you want. We won't be asking anymore, but remember this, you'll never get anything from us ever again. Next time your fridge or stove or whatever breaks, don't dare to ask help from us. You won't get a single cent. She was like, as if I need anything from you. The attitude. The damn attitude. Kiddo has diagnosis and ex-mother-in-law is no contact. Kiddo has been formally diagnosed with autism. Thank you to everyone who pointed it out, as we probably wouldn't have had made the connection ourselves. She had her initial assessment with the GP over a month ago, and the GP sent us to a specialist who confirmed it. X and I are working together to figure out what that means for us in terms of what we should be doing to help her, and how we are going to work with Kiddo from now on so she has what she needs. We repainted her bedroom at his place from a fairly bright shade of pink chosen by ex-mother-in-law to a far more muted purple chosen by Kiddo. The old color apparently hurt her head and was part of her not wanting to go. We have also replaced our bulbs with dimmer bulbs so she can turn the brightness to where she's comfortable, or lower watt bulbs. With X's permission, I gave Kiddo a few perfume samples, let her pick her favorites, and I bought a bottle of perfume that Kiddo liked for me and a cologne she liked for X. They smelled very similar to what we already wore, just a lot more muted, and she hasn't complained about the scent being too strong since we switched. Kiddo has days where she's fine with physical contact, but we've realized that when she hugs me, I don't initiate it and I usually take a second before lightly hugging back. Not because of her, but that's just how I hug people in general. When Kiddo next hugged X, he tried doing it the same way. He noticed me doing it and Kiddo was a lot more receptive. Didn't pull away as quickly and has been hugging him a lot more. Kiddo still uses do not touch me, complete with holding her arms out if she really doesn't want to be touched. But in the last months, she has only used this once on the boy at school who kept hugging her. He was the reason I taught her it in the first place. And once another boy who wanted to play kiss chase, she has not used it on X. X is also seriously considering a career change, as his current job has him away for around half the year. Sometimes more, and he wants to be around more for Kiddo's sake. If he does end up getting a job that's close to home, we'll work out a new custody agreement probably every other week. We're still figuring out how exactly to work with Kiddo, as she has moments that we now realize are meltdowns, and during those moments she often stops talking to us, or at all. But we're getting better at figuring out what's wrong and adjusting accordingly. We have made some tweaks to the schedule for trading time with Kiddo. Now I take her to X's house and we all have dinner. And then I leave alone, and when we're transitioning into my week, X brings her here and has dinner at my place before leaving alone. We decided to give X mother-in-law one last chance to not fuck it up. Made it clear she was on thin ice and needed to be on her best behavior, and invited her to one of these dinners about a week after Kiddo was diagnosed. Ex-mother-in-law came. She was on her best behavior for maybe about 10 minutes, just long enough for us all to sit down and start eating before she yelled at us for giving Kiddo autism. Ex made her leave, and he's been totally no contact for a month as of today, which is why this update is only coming now. I broke and checked her Facebook earlier, and it's just post after post about how autism apparently never existed before the century, full of back in my day bullshit. It's fairly even mix of her sharing blog posts from anti-vaxxers and her personal rants about that bitch, me, who turned my grandbaby into a word we do not use in this house, and knowing she's referred to my daughter like that means me want to hunt her down, and forced my baby, as in her adult son who has a 6-year-old child, to stop speaking to her. X says she tried to approach him a few times, both in person and over internet phones, but he's not budging. X has said that no contact is looking permanent. Given how she's acted and he's still in touch with his dad, a just yes. Ex-father-in-law apparently had an argument with ex-mother-in-law in front of X over how she was talking about Kiddo, and now they're meeting outside of the house to get a pint or see a football match. I am really relieved with how this turned out. It could have gone a whole lot worse than it did. And this is probably the best scenario. Would have been better if ex-mother-in-law wasn't a just no and was just a smidge more supportive, but if she's gone for good, then why look a gift horse in the mouth? So those were the stories for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, a like will be highly appreciated. It really does help my channel out. Also, if you enjoyed this and want to stay up to date on the latest videos, then don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.